Hello and welcome to That Shooting Show. My name's Steve Anderson. I am your humble host. I want to do the news first. We're going to be in Gaskin, Florida, February the 10th and 11th. That is available if you go to andersonshooting.com, and upcoming classes, you can find that there, as well as everything else we're going to be doing. Also want to let you know we have a couple of spots left for mental management at 5 p.m. January 23rd, 24th, and 25th Eastern Time, online via the Zoom. And we'll have more dates coming up in February here very soon for those. If there's a particular time you need or want to do mental management in February, you need to let me know that. If you're available during the day Eastern Time, I can create a class just for you. We'll make it available to other people. If you need something a little later, you gotta let me know that. I typically default to the 5 p.m. slot because that's the most popular. But we can do other times. I just need to know when somebody's available. We'll set it up for you, then we'll make it available to other folks, and people that have your same schedule can be on your same schedule. It'll be great. All right, and also want to remind you that you can get a free class at the range of your choice if you be the class sponsor and arrange the range. You will get the class for free. You also get the pleasure of hosting me in your home if you would choose to do that. I'm an excellent house guest, by the way. 5 stars, highly recommended. Can provide references for that as well. And most of you may know that both of my Facebook pages got hacked, and I have not been able to regain them. So if you are a Facebook hack expert and can help me regain access, this is probably a terrible place to ask for help for that. Because I don't know. Let's just rephrase that. If you're not a hacker and I already know you and you think you can help me get access to my business page, I don't really want to start a new one over there. But I have tried all the Facebook recommendations to reclaim that page and have not been able to do it yet. So if you are a computer expert, not a hacker, and I already know you, send me a message and let's figure out how to do this. Because don't really mind starting the personal page over. A little house cleaning there wouldn't be terrible. Don't really want to start the business page over. And unless Jay Beal hacks my Instagram account, we should be fairly safe over there for the time being. So if you're a hacker and I don't know you, disregard the previous solicitation. Okay? Just do that on your own. And want to thank our partners. Walther is the proud sponsor of andersonshooting.com and also this podcast. You can tell because of the highly professional Walther theme studio that we operate here right now. Got the 10 Walther sign hung up on the wall just right. And of course, the dirty Walther hat that was refused by Jay Beal when I offered it to him at Care Optics Nationals. He said, "No, I do not want your dirty hat, and I will not take it." But that doesn't mean that Walther is not the title sponsor of this program. Primarily the new PDP steel frame gun. I cannot say enough great things about that thing. The trigger, finest trigger I have ever felt on a production gun of any kind, and that's just all there is to it. One of my buddies, Terry, just picked one up, and that was his first comment. "I cannot believe how great this trigger is," and you won't be able to believe it either when you feel it. It's just that awesome. And of course, CR Speed makes the finest gun handling gadgetry you can wrap around your waist or anywhere else. Targets USA makes the finest steel targetry on the planet. It is portable, it is affordable, it is the best. And of course, Hunter's HD Gold is the only eyewear that I wear, and you can see that because I are wearing it right now. OutdoorDynamics.net remanufactures the finest competition ammunition you can dispense from a Freedom Seed dispenser. And the AMG-Lab.com Commanders and Timer continues to turn heads and blow minds, by putting the time into the tablet. And I get requests and complaints about the lead time from AMG. The only thing I can do is send them your order number and ask them to expedite your order. That sometimes works. I know there's a lead time. Alex knows there's a lead time. We all know there's a lead time with AMG-lab.com commanders and timers. All I can tell you is it's worth the wait. Okay, that's all I can tell you about that. And of course, shootingsportsinnovations.com is a lot to type because there is a lot to see when you get there. All right, so what we're going to talk about today is consistency at major matches. This was inspired by a podcast that Lanny Basham and his son Troy did recently, and you can find that on the YouTube. They called it How to Come Back from a Poor Start. And I didn't want to call it that because I didn't want to steal their podcast idea, but I kind of did anyway, and that's okay. That's all right. I get to do that. But one of the first things they talked about was, why does a poor start occur? And I don't know why Lanny Basham thinks a poor start might occur, so I was very interested in that. Well, the first thing he said was fatigue can cause a poor start. If you're training too much prior to a competition and you're physically tired, if your body is not in great shape because of overtraining right before the event, that can cause a poor start. That's something that I hadn't considered because I personally never did that. Most shooters will back off the training a little bit pretty close to an event. And I don't know about the habits of everybody, but that would be an interesting conversation to have. But what I certainly would advocate for sure is more match mode training and less speed mode training prior to an event. And I advocate that earnestly. But most of you are probably smart enough to not be physically tired when you get to the event. Travel, time zone changes, all sorts of things can contribute to this. I know Jay Beal actually mentioned last time I talked to him taking care to avoid injury to his hands. I always did that kind of instinctively, but he goes out of his way to avoid injury. Of course, he farms goats and blueberries, so maybe hand injuries are a little bit more likely in that line of work, but that's something I hadn't considered. Okay. A poor start can also occur from over trying. And it could also be caused by under trying. And we'll talk about those a bunch because we do a lot on this program. Pressure can also cause, pressure by itself doesn't cause the overtrying, but it can. Okay. And the other interesting thing about pressure is when it's removed by a poor start, people can shoot pretty well. The best example is if somebody gets bumped to open and they're not shooting open, you'll frequently hear things like, I'm just shooting for fun. Well, if you're having fun and you're not worried about the results, you're not going to feel any pressure. Okay. And it can be removed by a poor start. One of the things Lanny talked about was if a shooter thinks he's quote unquote out of it, like if there's something you're trying to accomplish at an event, some sort of finish that you want and you believe it's no longer possible, that removes the pressure. And he told several stories of that happening to people and coming back to win the event. But that doesn't mean we want to make that our model. Right? I heard a story about a very famous shooter whose name I will not mention just in case the story is not correct. Used to whack a no shoot on his first stage. What I think was happening there is, hey, I've made my mistake. I don't have to worry about it anymore and I can just shoot. Or maybe this shooter preferred to come from behind. I don't fully understand because I heard the comment in passing, and that's why I'm not going to state the shooter's name. But that's something that we don't want to have to do. What if the match is so close that whacking the no shoot on the first stage decides the match? These big matches are finishing. Gosh, they're becoming so tight in how closely the finishes are. I don't think you can afford to whack a no shoot on your first stage. Okay, so pressure is very misunderstood by shooters. Very, very, very misunderstood. Major match pressure is frequently self-induced. This causes an abnormal or a different worry about results, which literally chokes off subconscious skill. Anytime you are worried about the results of something, you're not going to get access to subconscious skill. Over-trying and under-trying, both cause the conscious control of speed, which by definition prevents access to your training. I know we've been beating that broken record with a dead horse here, or beating the dead horse with a broken record lately, but I need you guys to understand that. The conscious control of speed will prevent access to your training. Okay? Now, here's a couple things we know. Slowing down to get your hits is a little better than rush, try, hurry, but will not be top performance. Okay? Slowing down to get your hits and rush, try, hurry are both caused by worrying about results instead of focusing on process. This is why most shooters avoid looking at the results. They may not even know it, right? But you're going to reach a point, if you're a high-level shooter, where you're going to know the results because people are going to tell you. And so short term, I got no problem avoiding the results. I think that's very helpful. But we also need to be in a place where we can deal with it. And ideally, well, the real issue with looking at results is it can create a conflict for the self-image. And people don't understand that either. And doing better than expected can be just as bad as doing worse than expected. It could actually be worse, right? If you find out you're winning and that's a new idea for you, you won't know what to do. You won't know what to do. You have a choice. Hey, look at this. Look at these results. I'm winning. This is exactly what I wanted. But I'm terrified of it because it's not normal. So now I don't know what to do. And if we're doing worse than expected and we look at results, ideally we've already made the correction. That's one of the things Lanny said about a poor start is if you've had a poor start on day one, you need to evaluate the day and make the correction. He said something else that was really interesting to me too. He said, when it's mathematically impossible for you to achieve your goal, he used the example of qualifying for a team. And he and his son Troy talked about if it's mathematically impossible to achieve your goal, and you know this on day one, use that opportunity to work on your process without a fear of results. And that I've talked to Lanny for hours, and it's something I've never heard him say before. Right? If you have such a bad day one that you're quote unquote out of it, use the rest of the match as an opportunity to practice your process without worrying about the results. For sure, the pressure will be removed, right? But the thing about it is, I don't know if we have a bullet point about this or not. I'll go ahead and tell you now. We might have a bullet point for it. Pressure is non-negotiable. And what that means is whatever amount of pressure you're feeling is the amount of pressure you're going to feel. Now, some of it can be self-induced, but by that time, it's pretty much non-negotiable. Okay? And most shooters know more about their worst shooting than they do their best. So when we feel pressure, we tend to go with what we know. That's self-image, right? And if what we know is I'm sloppy or I'm slow or I'm not good at this, I'm not good at that, pressure will amplify those beliefs. Okay? And every time you relive a poor performance, it becomes more normal. This is why slumps occur. Somebody's performing poorly and they know exactly why and they keep talking about it. That's a slump. It's the reinforcement of the poor performance. Okay? Every time you relive a great performance, it also becomes more normal. This would be a winning streak. Okay? But the thing is, if we don't know what is happening when we're getting it right, how can we make it more likely to get it right? But if we know more about getting it wrong, boy, we're great at that. And you can do the exact same thing by understanding what is happening when you are getting it right. But if you never acknowledge that you're getting it right, how are you going to know what you're doing? How are you going to know what to do if you never acknowledge getting it right? Okay? A couple of these things I believe are pretty obvious, but consistent thinking can only produce consistent shooting, for better or for worse. Okay? Inconsistent thinking can only produce inconsistent shooting. Okay? So what you need to do is you need to learn what to think about before, during, and after every stage. Before, during, and after every match. Before, during, and after every training session. If your thoughts are the same and you can control them, mental consistency is inevitable. One of the things Lanny said as an aside, anytime you're talking to Lanny Basham, you got to pay close attention because he'll cast you a gold nugget. He doesn't repeat himself hardly ever. He's not real big on beating a dead record with the broken horse or he doesn't do that. So you really got to pay attention when you talk to Lanny because he might toss you a piece of gold, and if you don't catch it, he's not going to throw it again. Okay? So using local matches as practice will prevent you from practicing competing. That's the problem with major matches. It isn't that we take them too seriously. It's that we don't take the local matches seriously enough because we're practicing. We think we are. We're goofing off. We're over-volunteering. I know the match needs an RO. I know it needs a tablet person. I get all that. But if you're over-volunteering and you're not learning how to compete, maybe you need to back off a little bit from the volunteering. Okay? The best way to get somebody to take over for you as an RO or a tablet keeper scorer person is to set the device down and walk away from it. Because you're never going to get a volunteer. I mean, you might if the squad is particularly considerate, but it's not very often. So set it down and walk away. You tell them ahead of time, say, hey guys, I'll run one more shooter, I'll score one more run, and then I'm done until I shoot. Just tell them that ahead of time. Okay? But if you're using, or if you think you're using your local matches as shooting practice, you're missing out on practicing competing. So you don't really have a competition process, and then you go to a major match and you wonder why you don't really have a mental process. Okay? So if you want to use a local match to conduct an experiment, I would support that. Just make sure that you learn something from it. People ask me all the time, should I go to my local match and just put the hammer down and see what happens? I personally wouldn't advocate that, only because I know what happens when we do that. But I had a shooter tell me one time that she just wanted times that were the same as everybody else. And she didn't care about the score. So that's an experiment. Okay? If you're going to conduct an experiment at a local match, make sure that you learn something from it. Okay? Jay Beal talked about shooting a match in production and shooting as fast as he could shoot. But it was a very specific experiment with a very specific goal. Okay? It's those two examples. As you probably know, I am so interested in your mental competition process that I'm not a huge fan of those kinds of experiments. But make sure that you learn from it. Obviously, in Jay's case, he wanted to learn something very specific, and he did. but he also has one of the best mental processes in the sport. And so he can conduct an isolated experiment because he already has a reliable process. So the isolated experiment is just a chance for him to learn something. Okay. So this is the thing I said earlier that we have bullet point for now. Pressure cannot be negotiated. Whatever level of pressure you're feeling at the competition is real. Okay. And if anybody ever tells you to make it go away or ignore it, that's insane. Okay? You're feeling it, it's real. But here's the good news, and I've told you this numerous times. It can only amplify what you are thinking and feeling. I can't do anything else. Athletes crumble under pressure if it amplifies fear or anxiety. Okay? If you're nervous and scared, pressure will make you more nervous and more scared. But people thrive under pressure at work. Most people. And everybody who believes they're good at their job, pressure makes them better because it amplifies the belief that they are good at your job. So if you could find a way to believe that you were a great shooter, pressure would make you a better shooter. Most of the people I talk to, the first thing they tell me is I'm a lousy shooter. It's the first thing they tell me. Sometimes I try to stop them. Sometimes I let them keep talking. It depends how the conversation's going. But that's usually the first thing they tell me is I'm lousy. Well, what is pressure going to do with that belief? It's going to amplify it. The last time I felt a lot of pressure, I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast or not, but I was in New Jersey, and my buddy CJ gave me a 3D printed Glock and wanted me to shoot the classifier stage. And for about 8 seconds, I was scared to death. It's a lot of pressure. Okay, I've got paying customers there. I've got maybe 100 rounds total through a Glock platform, something along those lines. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't have a lot of self-image regarding Glock specifically, which is interesting. But we must continue. So he hands me this gun, and I was terrified because fear and anxiety. What if it doesn't work? What if it blows up? What if I don't shoot it well? What if I embarrass myself? What if I'm slow? What if I have a miss? Pressure was amplifying all of these things. And then I defined success. What do you got to do? Well, I got to put the dot in the middle of the target. You know how to do that? There is nobody on the planet better than me at putting the dot in the middle of the target. Some people can do it faster, but that's not how I define success. I define success as putting the dot in the middle of the target, and it went great because the pressure now amplifies my desire to simply put the dot in the middle of the target and my belief that I'm great at it. So pressure gave me a great run. And if there's a lack of confidence, it can only come from negative imprints to self-image. This is the mistake that most people are making in training. If you're beating yourself up in training, can't do it, not good enough, not fast enough, not accurate, you are creating what pressure is going to amplify. These ideas will grow larger under pressure. Well, you're telling me just to pat myself on the behind and then not ever try to get better. That's not what I'm saying at all. I never said anything of the sort. But controlling the imprints to self-image during training is the only way to produce confidence. It's the only way. And mental management teaches you to have the same thoughts before, during, and after every stage. Every time we do a class, online, in person, wherever, and somebody is having a consistency issue, and they've told me this, okay? I pick them out. I say, okay, do you have the same thoughts? And I'm very insistent on a yes or no answer, okay? Do you have the exact same thoughts before every stage? Kinda. That wasn't the question, The question was, do you have, yes or no, the exact same thoughts before, during, and after every stage? And the answer is no. Do you have the same thoughts during every stage? Kind of, sort of. Okay, that's a yes or a no. No. And do you have the same thoughts after every stage? Of course not. And we wonder why we're not consistent at major matches. If the thoughts are different, the shooting will be different. And longtime listeners will know that I always make fun of this. You can always tell when somebody's writing an article for the first time because they start the article with the definition of the topic, right? And they'll write something like, the English dictionary defines consistency. So I always try to avoid doing that. But sometimes it's fun because we need to know what this word means. Okay, consistency is defined as conformity in the application of something, typically that which is necessary for the sake of logic, accuracy, or fairness. Conformity in the application of something, typically that which is necessary for the sake of logic, accuracy, or fairness. And guys, and I'm not sure if we told you this today or not, I tell you guys all the time, consistency is the quality of your thoughts and your ability to duplicate them. Thinking and doing something the same way every single time. What if I don't get what I want? What if I make a mistake? That's where we can help you the most, is if you make a mistake. That's where we can help you the most. We'd rather prevent them, but mental management is extremely good with what to do after a mistake or a problem. Okay? I will never forget the great Joey Sauerland having a death jam on the Bill Drill stage at Handgun Nationals. I think he only fired 3 rounds. I'm like, I wonder how he's going to respond to this. So he looks back over his shoulder and says something along the lines of, best time of the stage, now watch me crush this field course. But he also has the benefit of me as a mental coach, so he knows exactly what to do. And you will too. When you make me your mental coach, you will always know exactly what to do. So folks, hope you've enjoyed today's program on consistency at major matches. It was the best clickbait I could come up with to avoid stealing Laney's clickbait, which worked on me, obviously. And again, if you're interested in the full mental management program, you need to let me know when you can do it so I can schedule it on your schedule and make it available to other people. All right. So once again, until we meet again, I want you all to be like me, do what I do, say it with me. 1, 2, 3, get to work.